the show. If you're new here, welcome to you too. Today, I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to be talking about because this is something that I know so many of us are going to be able to resonate with. So many of us have struggled with in one way or another. And this is the subject of creative block. Whether you have struggled with staring at a blank piece of paper, an empty canvas because you're not sure where to start painting, or even just coming up with ideas for your next video or your next play or whatever it is that you do, I think we've all been there and we have felt insecure and wondered, where's my creative magic? Where did my creativity go? So no matter what you've been through, I want to let you know that creative block doesn't have to stop you. So I really want to get into this. I want to talk about what creative block is, why it happens, and some of the ways that you can harness the power of these roadblocks to your advantage so that you can embrace them and make them a part of your creative practice. So grab your tea, get comfy, and let's get into it. I want to start off by describing what creative block might be looking like for you right now. You might be able to recognize yourself in one or a few of these examples. So pay attention and see if this is something that you can relate to. Do you find yourself thinking a lot about what people think about you, and maybe even worrying about getting canceled or attacked if you share your true opinions? Maybe you have been thinking, I want to write a memoir and I really want to do it, but I know that I'm going to have to talk about some really taboo subjects and I don't know if I can handle it. So maybe I'm just going to wait until I'm ready. Or maybe you don't like working without a plan. You think to yourself, there's no way I can get anything started unless I have a clear, detailed plan of what I'm going to do, because this whole using my intuition and feeling my way into the process doesn't really resonate with me. I don't feel comfortable. It stresses me out. This feels really uncomfortable to you. It feels foreign. You don't like to work this way. So you get stuck in planning and dreaming up ideas, but never really taking action. Or what about judging yourself harshly? Have you found yourself starting to work, starting to create something, and looking at what you created and wondering, wow, is this really the best that I can do? Who's going to take me seriously if I put this out there? And maybe even just closing your laptop, closing your notebook, walking away and doing something more productive because you think to yourself, this is a waste of time. This is dumb. Like, why am I even doing this? And you just don't continue the work. You stop yourself. Do any of these things sound familiar to you? If they do, I want you to know that you are not alone. This is such a common experience across the board with all kinds of different creatives. Now, let's talk about creative block. What is it? I define creative block as a frustrating moment when ideas just don't come. It feels like all your creative juices have dried up and you can't get anything done, no matter how hard you try. There are so many reasons why creative block happens, whether it's perfectionism and feeling like things are not good enough and therefore we can't ship them, or it could be emotional or mental exhaustion. If we've been working really hard and we haven't been taking breaks, we're going to feel tired and like unable to come up with any more ideas because we just need to rest. Or it could be external factors like your environment or having the right tools to do the job. And for many neurodivergent creatives like myself, sometimes it has everything to do with our brains and wanting more stimulation or needing more rest. But here's the most important thing that I want you to remember. Creative block is part of the process. It doesn't mean that you are no longer creative or you lost your creativity. In fact, this is more of a signal to check in with yourself and your creative practice to figure out whether you need to rest, play, or do any other change that is required to keep moving forward with your creative practice. I'm going to let you in on a secret. Even for those of us professional creatives who are constantly creating and doing projects and whatnot, we also struggle with creative block. Because at the end of the day, we are all human beings and we all have emotions and feelings and we get tired. And so just because we have been creating longer or have degrees doesn't mean that we don't struggle with these things. Once I figured this out, I think that really helped me to shift my mindset and realize that even if you're just starting out in your creative journey, or if you have been at this for a while, you are not exempt from creative block. This is one of those things that I personally didn't learn in art school. In my experience, no one ever talked to me about creative block or the fact that this was going to happen throughout the years, even after school. So it was really shocking to me that I paid so much money and I still didn't know these things about creating. I also remember when I was in school and in different classes, and I was expected to come up with ideas for projects. And I used to be so stressed out and I used to freak out because I didn't know how to come up with ideas initially. And it was so stressful to know that I was going to be graded and that there had to be a project done. And I hadn't even been able to come up with an idea. And when I was in school, I also felt this pressure to impress the professors and to do something really cool and out there for the sake of getting their approval. But not really enjoying my projects because I didn't feel confident in what I wanted to explore. And so those are some of the experiences that inspire me in the work that I do as a coach now, because I think a lot about that young version of myself, that young Renata who wasn't confident, who didn't have these tools and struggled for many, many years trying to figure out how to make things easier on myself. And I'm sure that so many of you are there. So this is something that I wanted to share. So you know that I'm talking from personal experience. Now that we have identified what creative block is and why it happens, I want to talk about what to do when you hit that wall. So here are 5 strategies that have worked for me in the women of color creatives that I coach, and I think are going to work for you too. First, start off by naming your feelings. Whenever you're starting to feel something, whatever that is, whether it's frustration, anger, sadness, naming your feelings is such an important step because it helps us to normalize whatever is coming up. And it also helps to ease the stress or the anxiety of whatever feeling is coming up once we can name it. By the way, I have a free resource for you if you want to check it out. It's called the Relaxing Your Way into Creating Workbook. And it's a resource that I created for you that includes an emotions wheel that you can use to pin on your wall and reference whenever you're struggling to figure out what it is that you're feeling. I know that I have used this tool so many times because sometimes I'm so overwhelmed with emotions that it's hard to pinpoint what it is that I'm experiencing. And so having this tool in an easy to way access helps me to pin down what that emotion is. So feel free to check it out. Next, practice self-compassion by speaking positively to yourself. I know that positive self-talk is all the rave these days, and so many of us actually don't talk to ourselves that way. And at first, it might feel weird to be kind and gentle to ourselves, but it's so important to be our best friends, our own coaches when it comes to our creativity, because the world is already so filled with negativity, haters, and people not supporting us that it really, really matters how you speak to yourself and how you support your own self through your journey. So whenever you find yourself struggling through these waters of being blocked, be gentle with yourself. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel how you feel and that eventually things are going to pass. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Next, lean into curiosity. Whenever you start to feel blocked and like you can't move forward and you're starting to feel insecure, lean into curiosity. And you can do this by asking questions like, what if I try this? Or I wonder what would happen if, or I'm really curious to discover how I'm going to solve this. I mean, just by listening to these questions, you can start to get a feel for the kind of energy that I'm putting out. It's very different from the fear based energy that we find ourselves in when we're blocked. The energy is much more inviting, and it releases that pressure to have to get everything right, and it brings us back into our play and our exploration and our curiosity and inner child that lives within us. So ask yourself, what am I curious about? What do I want to learn through this project? And get back into that energy that got you started in the first place with this whole project to begin with. This next idea is to practice self-care. Like I mentioned earlier, so many of us love creating. We like to be in our process, we like to be in our world. And it's easy to forget to take care of our bodies and ourselves in general. I know this is definitely the case for me and for many of us neurodivergent folks who like to dive deep on a topic and submerge ourselves, that we lose track of time. We forget to eat, we forget to stretch, we forget to take breaks. So this is such a big one, because if you keep doing this too many times, it builds up, and this is where we burn out and we crash, and really we want to avoid getting to that point. So if you have been trying to work and you can't focus, check in with yourself and ask, do I need to eat something? Do I need to take a nap? Do I need to walk my dog and like go for a walk and stretch my legs and get away from my workspace? What is it that you need, that your body needs to feel replenished and fueled? My last strategy is to create limits. This one might come as a surprise for many of us who might just be getting into creativity, or maybe not. But believe it or not, creating limits forces our brain to come up with solutions, and it helps us to focus. So, whatever we can do to minimize the amount of decisions that we have to make, the better. Examples of what this can look like can include things like setting a deadline for yourself, limiting the amount of materials that you're working with, or limiting the techniques that you're trying in one project. Personally, I like to do all the different things that I just talked about whenever I'm feeling blocked, because I find that doing a little bit of everything helps to reach different areas of my mind, my body, my spirit that might be needing support. And so I think the more the better. But sometimes you'll find that you only need like one little thing that you haven't been doing, and that helps you to get the ball rolling again. And some other times you need to do all the things. But what I think is most helpful is to have a set of strategies in place that you can refer back to, so that you don't have to think about it once you're in that situation. So I highly encourage you to create a toolkit that you can refer back to whenever you're feeling stuck, with inspiration, with tools that you can use that really resonate for you. And most importantly, listen to yourself, listen to your needs, so that you can give yourself whatever your body is craving. To recap, today we talked about the way that creative block shows up for many of us, what creative block is and why it happens, and 5 different strategies that you can use whenever you're feeling stuck. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from listening to this episode, is that struggling with creative blocks doesn't make you any less creative. In fact, this is part of the process. Do not fear blocks, embrace them, get curious about them, and use them as signal posts to let you know that it's time to take a pause and check in with yourself. Remember, creativity works in cycles and ebbs and flows, so your ideas will be coming back. If you're feeling stuck with your creative projects or your creativity in general, I would love for us to connect. Schedule your free discovery session today. The link is in the description. so that we can chat about what's holding you back and create a potential plan to help you to start to move forward with confidence. Thanks for tuning in. And if you're listening to the podcast, please don't forget to rate the show. And I will talk to you next week. Until then, stay creative.